welcome back to Citizen Extra. Thanks for engaging with us. We're online at Citizen TV Kenya, and you can get in touch with us using the hashtag Citizen Extra. We're talking about all the news that matters, some 11 days to the general election, and we're live for you on the campaign trail this hour as we look at the 11-day sprint that is ahead of the top two contenders. We're standing by with Jackie Maribe, who's going to be live for us in Nanyuki very shortly, embedded with the presidential campaign team, and Stephen Latour is tracking NASA movements for us live from Nandi Hills. We're also keeping an eye at the law courts this morning in a case where officials of St. Augustine School are before the courts following a tragedy where a student fell through a hole in the bus and was crushed to death. So those are the pictures that are on your screen with these individuals arraigned in court over the matter. We'll be talking about that very shortly. But first, let's take you to Stephen Latour, who's live in Nandi Hills. He's following Raila Odinga, who's the NASA presidential candidate, as he makes his pleas for votes 11 days to the general election. Stephen.
Well, thank you, Anne, there in studio, and good morning to you. Like you put it, we are on the campaign trail of the National Super Alliance. Today, their campaigns have been focused on 3 counties in the North Rift region. That is Nandi County, Uasin Gishu County, as well as Elgeyo Marakwet. The National Super Alliance, led by Raila Odinga, is going to split into 3 teams, one touring several areas in Nandi County, while the other is going to come through Elgeyo Marakwet, while the other one will be traversing several constituencies in Uasin Gishu before now culminating into a major rally. That is the final rally in the afternoon in 64 Stadium in Eldoret. Right now where we are is Nandi Hills. It is one of the stops that Raila Odinga is expected to make upon his landing. Remember, yesterday they were in Meru, and what they were trying to do is penetrate into their opponent's territory of Mount Kenya, and today they are also doing the same, penetrating and trying to lie in the bed of the Deputy President. That is the Deputy President William Ruto's bedrock of Nandi, Uasin Gishu, as well as Elgeyo Marakwet. In June, the NASA team were also here, but they held a rally in Marsabit Stadium. They of course met a little bit of resistance from Jubilee party supporters, but all the same they proceeded with their rally. And today here in Nandi Hills, we want to see the reception of the National Super Alliance and how the locals here are going to receive the NASA Pentagon. But of course the issue of the issues that has been anchored in the NASA manifesto on how to improve the economic blueprint of the North Rift counties is what the NASA team had launched in June. But today they are expected to come and elaborate to the locals here, barely 11 days to the general election. There are several issues that lie here in terms of, for instance, the issue of the tea farming as well as maize farming that is so crucial in this particular region, and it is that the National Super Alliance says it intends to revolutionize the tea sector in terms of bonuses to farmers and how they are going to ensure that farmers get a value for their money. Remember, earlier this week there was the burial of the late Bethel Kiplagat. That was the chairman of the Truth, Justice and Reconciliation Commission. That is also supposed to feature. The NASA team has been accusing their Jubilee opponents of ignoring the TGRC report, and so the passing on of Bethel Kiplagat, who they were actually supposed to attend his burial, but they took their campaigns to Lamu, is what they are expected to focus on today, how they intend to implement that particular report that they say is continuing to gain or to gather dust in the National Assembly with little or no intention of implementation from the Jubilee party. And so a lot is expected here in Nandi, but particularly as they will be heading to 64 Stadium in Eldoret. That is where they are going to have a mother of all of their rallies for today, and we are expecting a culmination of several presidential campaign teams from the Wiper side of Ukambani, as well as the ODM presidential campaign team from Nyanza coming all the way up here, as well as those from the western region, also all coming to join their NASA leaders here at the 64 Stadium. But more of the same is how they are going to utilize the remaining 11 days to ensure that their political foot footprints across the 47 counties is felt and gives them a substantive number of votes. For instance, tomorrow they are heading to Turkana. They will be going to Kajiado, Machakos, and Nakuru County in that order. And so it is a packed 11 days for the National Super Alliance. But we are going to keep an eye on every step that they will be making, and of course our ears will be wide open to hear what they have in their manifesto, particularly for the regions that is perceived to be the Jubilee Party strongholds. Remember yesterday, while in Mount Kenya region, they said that they will not be going to, sideline some regions because it is not their strongholds, and that they said in the next 100 days, Mount Kenya region will benefit from a NASA government through developmental projects, as well as resuscitating the ailing miraa industry in the Meru region. So, and I will hand you back, but we are on this campaign trail, and we'll be able to bring you every single detail of this particular campaign trail of the National Super Alliance. For now, I hand you back to Studio Ann.
Thanks very much. Stephen, let's catch up now with Jackie Maribe, also on the campaign trail, live for us from Nanyuki.
Right, indeed, Kiguta, we are in Nanyuki, as you say. We are making our way to Maralal in Samburu County, where President Uhuru Kenyatta, his deputy William Ruto, will be leading the Jubilee Brigade there today, one of two counties that they will be visiting. Later on, they will head over to Marsabit. They will be in Marsabit town and later Moyale, as they seek to rally the voters there. There are 82,000 voters, Kiguta, in Samburu County, 141,000 in Marsabit County. But what we know, Kiguta, as of now is that since there are only 12 days left, it means there are 11 campaign days to go. Now, there has been a lot of counties that they have covered already, but now they're also going back. It's basically a second round of a blitz that they will now not just be asking the electorate for their votes, but it is asking those they have already asked, Kiguta, to come out to the very last man and cast their ballot. Now, there's a lot of ground to cover for them in the next 11 days. It saw them even split yesterday, Kiguta, the deputy president taking to 5 counties, Nakuru, Vihiga, Kakamega, Nandi and the likes, and the president heading to Nyeri and Murang'a. But what we have noticed, Kiguta, is that in these final days, they are really targeting their strongholds and those counties that are perceived swing counties. And yesterday we heard from the deputy president already telling the electorate that their mission is not just to ensure round-round victory, but to ensure that the gap between them and their competitors is 3 million votes. And now this is what they are looking at doing, even as they rally their supporters, Kiguta, just to make sure they tell them to come out and vote, get their votes out and not leave anyone to chance. We had the president yesterday in his central, or rather Mount Kenya backyard, even asking the youth to ensure that even if it is those that are old and aged and disabled, they should help them to come out and ensure that they cast their ballots on August 8th. So it is really a race against time now, Kiguta, but it is also about the game of numbers. As expected, neither them or their competitors would want to go for a second round or a runoff, and that is the messaging that they will be giving the electorate, even as we continue to follow them on their ambitious 30 counties, 400 stops plan in the next 11 days. Kiguta.
Jackie, you're going to be one very busy lady. Clearly, and all the best on the campaign trail. Let me come to studio now with my guest. Dr. Sam Kamau joins us this hour. He's a political analyst alongside Joy Mudivo, who is a governance analyst. Mark Bichachi stays with us, a communication strategist, and Charles Kipkule, a political analyst. And you're all welcome to the program. So it's the 11-day sprint, and what a race that Jubilee has sort of set itself up for, with this very ambitious 400 stops that are split in half between the president and his deputy. Joy, let me start with you. In terms of the home stretch, is this what really they must do? Make sure they show up everywhere, even if it's for 5 minutes, and what impact does that have? Joy.
Having had the debate that you had just in the hour prior to this, then you see why this has become very critical for the Jubilee campaign. Because missing the presidential debate and the vice president's debate was a conscious decision on the part of Jubilee, but what that did, there's a lot of their core base that was shaken by that event. And I would imagine now that they need to come back to a place where they reassure their followers, they bring back the core together and message them directly. Since they set themselves up to meet the people, then that's what they have to do. They have to meet the people. Ambitious, yes. Will they do it? They have the benefit of youth and energy on their side, so I think they will make it, but it will be exhausting. And in some places it may seem like a little bit too little too late, but I like the effort and the energy, because if you think about it, by the 5th of August, all this has to end. So they have those 3 days before the elections to sort of decompress and relax. So it makes sense to put in as much energy as they can right now. So ambitious, yes. Do they have to do it? I think so. Because if they do not consolidate their base now, they don't get out the message of get out the vote, then the numbers they're even talking about, the sort of margin they're looking for, may become unattainable because of that. So it's mandatory for them at this point, I think.
All right, they have absolutely no choice. Dr. Sam Kamau, you know, they're describing it as the president's odyssey in this area. Yes, that is actually taken from the spokesperson's statement. What do you think of that, and what advantage, if any, does it give them coming up to the general election?
Maybe Anna should first mention, to slightly differ with Joy, it's not because they both missed the debate that is why they have come up with this. This was already on the cards. And I think if you look at it, is what you'd call the final push, the final appeal. And the purpose of these 400 stops that they intend to make over the 30 counties, I think there are several things involved. One, of course, is to consolidate support in their bases and maintain the enthusiasm that has been exhibited in the past. The second thing, of course, is to make an appeal for voter turnout. But I think if you look at the counties that they are targeting, it would tell you, it informs their strategy, what is driving the specific counties that they have targeted. Because if you look at it, I think I've seen Kakamega, I've seen Bungoma. Maybe there are areas that they think they continue doing that enough, they may be able to turn some voters. But also if you look at it, they have also included what you would consider their strongholds. And I've said the purpose is first to consolidate the support, and especially areas that are perceived weak or where support could be wavering or not as strong as anticipated. Then I think it is part of consolidating that support, keeping the voters, the enthusiasm alive. But if you look at it also, NASA has targeted the same or some of those same or specific strongholds for the same reason. So the next 11 days is actually an issue of encouraging voter turnout in terms of assuring their base that we're actually winning, but we need your support, and that means then you have to keep enthusiasm alive. And that is the appeal I think we've seen the president making, especially in Central Kenya back here, telling people that they should reach out even to those who are old or those who are maybe unwell or disabled to make sure everybody comes out. So this is the final push, and I think the message they will be telling people is that we are actually winning. This is within range. We can actually get this, and therefore you need to come out and support and make this come true.
All right, Charles, you know, can the base still be excited at this point? And I don't know, you may be coming from the desk and the ground may be very different, but do you feel that there is still something yet to excite people with, that really this is it, you have to come out and vote, or is this more you know, just about convincing them that please show up in your numbers, because if you don't show up in your numbers, then the thing is lost?
I think at this point, what is really important is the most important thing at this point is the turnout, and which informs the reason why they are going to their strongholds and the swing counties. And for the voter, it is the turnout which they are targeting. But the important thing for the candidates now is visibility across the core support base, which is why they have to finish this and finish strong. This is like a long distance race, and they are now in the final push. And what matters is the energy. Everybody everywhere wants to see their candidate, and they are saying, we want to see our candidate and just feel that our champion is still going strong. And the purpose here, it will be mainly psychological. They are not even sending messages right now. That one, the time has gone. The home stretch period is just coming in, showing yourself, bringing a boost of confidence, and not, whereas you're exciting the masses, you are consolidating your base, just making sure that it remains intact and still rallies behind you to the final push.
All right. You know, you've worked on campaigns before, Mark. Give us an understanding of what it is like for candidates. You know, 11 you know, campaign days left. I think 13 to the general election. And what are, if you like, the landmines right now so close to, you know, the tape?
you know, if there's one thing you wish for your opponent at this time, is for the head of the FBI to say he's opening investigations into your opponent. That's really the worst case scenario, where there's a dossier somewhere that is huge. And you hope it happens to the other guy, and you hope it doesn't happen to you. That's one. Number two, at this time, what you want to do is really solidify your message. So on the campaign trail, I expect there to be a lot of repetition of promises, a lot of repetition of the core matters that you think will be emotional for your people. For example, I'm pretty sure but NASA rarely does this, but if their strategists are clever, they would ride on that single mothers thing and really push it over and over again. For Jubilee, they'll push the 3 million strong. We are winning this thing. We got this in the bag. So what you have to do is repeat your message so many times that it becomes the truth. And that's what politics is about. So repeat a message until it becomes the truth. And avoid any serious mistakes. This is not the time where you want a dossier coming out that there's been any corruption, or a dossier coming out that when you were prime minister there was a maize scandal, which again Raila has to deal with, because I think it's been attributed to him. So those are the pitfalls that people are looking for. The other thing that the team is looking to, how do you keep your candidate energized? Because let me tell you, every time you speak and you get up and you have to shout and things like that, you've got to worry about the voice, you've got to worry about the intonation. How active are they looking? Because, you know, if I slumped on TV right now, immediately everyone would be worried I don't have cholera.
We hope not.
We hope not, yeah. So the point is, in this kind of blitz, they've got to make sure the energies are up. If you remember Hillary Clinton, when she fainted on the campaign trail, how big of a story that was. So you have to make sure your candidate is healthy. They're standing up strong. They've got the energy. You've got to make sure your candidate is resting. So those are the things that you look out for.
All right, yeah, you can't look like your candidate is about to drop,
Yes, exactly.
We won't say the rest. Joy, let me return to you. If it's about turning out the vote, do you believe voters are, particularly excited about this? What would convince somebody who is apathetic at this stage to show up and vote?
You know, the difference with this election and last election is that in the last election, about 3 months before we went to the polls, we had the mass voter registration. And so most of the people who went out to get their vote did it with the intention of going to vote. This time round, you've had people who have had their vote since last elections, and so the people who have just come in, just made up the difference, are the ones who are sort of not a voter last time, who are too young to vote. So there's this gap in between where we are not too sure whether, even if we have 19 million registered voters, whether you're going to have a turnout that high. In between, people have become apathetic, people have become disillusioned with the process. There are others who believe that they look at all of the candidates, they do not see one who resonates with them. And so the candidates have a very, very major job to ensure that those who, because unlike before where you could measure yourself with the type of turnout, and that's where the tyranny of numbers came out, or in our areas we're able to register this much. This time around, that mathematics may not really work, because there are those who do have a voter's card but have no intention of voting. There are those who do have a voter's card but will be stationed where they work and have no energy to go home or no time to go home. So the dynamics to get out the vote right now, the stakes have never been higher for the candidates. And this time around, it's not just a matter of, oh, this is our thing, because we are seeing pockets of support even in areas of perceived strongholds. You're finding that the candidate has managed to make a foray. Remember the discussion we had here with Vincent Kimosop, and we made a wager that he made a wager that there'd be 30% in Kisii, and I said, what, if they make 10%, I'd be surprised. But we are seeing even in perceived strongholds, people are able to still carve out a little bit of vote here and there. Remember, 50+1 is a threshold, and the way we are going right now with the candidates being neck to neck, every single vote counts. Last time, all President Kenyatta needed was 8,000 votes, and he was over the threshold. This time around, we might see a margin of maybe even 2,000 votes to get somebody over the threshold of 50%+1.
And yet they're talking about a 3 million difference on the campaign trail.
I know.
Okay, let's Sam, let me come to you, Daktari, with some of the areas that both sides are going to, and let's talk about that. So for the presidency, it's Nyeri, Murang'a, Marsabit, Samburu, Bungoma, Kakamega, Elgeyo Marakwet, Baringo, Embu, Kirinyaga, Kiambu, Kajiado, Nakuru, Nyandarua, Laikipia, Nairobi. We should just say Kenya at this point. Bomet, Kericho, Meru, Tharaka Nithi, Kitui, Kilifi, Mombasa, Kisii, Nyamira, Nandi, Garissa, Migori, Uasin Gishu. Which areas jump out at you, and for what reasons do you think they're critical areas to campaign?
Actually, on the list you have read, you can tell Jubilee is mostly targeting its strongholds, and I think that is pushing up the numbers, because I think the swing counties there, I think I've had Kisii, I've had Kajiado, and I think Marsabit to an extent, but you can see they are focusing more on their strongholds. Maybe there's something I wanted to mention, that in 2013 there was a rallying call. ICC was a major mobilization point for Jubilee and the anti-ICC sentiments. This particular time, for either coalitions, I think NASA initially had hoped to ride on the cost of living, but I think that issue we are no longer talking about it, because Unga is back on the shelves, but also on Jubilee, and of course the issue of corruption. But I think it's like we have moved away from those things. That means then, like Mark implied, these last 11 days, you better make sure that you don't make a mistake, because your opponents will capitalize on that. But you can also expect that your opponents, if there is something they have against you, this is the time they are going to bring it out. But looking at those specific counties that Jubilee is targeting, I think their major strategy is increase turnout in your strongholds, but also get a percentage of support in perceived strongholds of your opponent, and that is why you've heard of Kakamega and Bungoma. That is why you hear Kisii and Nyamira. They are hoping for a percentage. If it could move to 25 or 30% in those particular areas, and also Kilifi and Mombasa, that is all they need to do to get to 50+1. So they consolidate their support, but make sure you erode support in the perceived strongholds of NASA, and I think that is their strategy.
All right, so this is bombshell season, eh? Is what everybody says. Okay, let's talk about some of the other areas for NASA. We're seeing Turkana, Elgeyo Marakwet, West Pokot, Uasin Gishu, Garissa, Bomet, Kericho, Mombasa, Kwale, Kakamega, Busia, Bungoma, Kisumu, Narok, Kajiado, Nakuru, and Murang'a. And in particular, when it comes to, you know, the targeting the opponents' areas, Charles, so what would the messaging be? What does NASA tell Murang'a and Nakuru and Kericho and Bomet and places like those?
Well, I think right now we have an agreement that the wisdom at this time of the campaign is to go to your stronghold and probably the swing vote area. Now, this one of going to the opponent's clear stronghold, which is almost 99%, to me looks like it's only for nuisance value, so that you try and create to distract them to come back to their stronghold, so that to go elsewhere. Because I do not see much of a change that or anything that will get, for example, going to Murang'a County for NASA. And the same will apply probably if Jubilee goes to a clear stronghold, for example, Kisumu, Homa Bay, or such counties. So at this moment, probably they are just trying to go there, distract, and get out, so that if there is a reaction from Jubilee that they are going to undo what has actually not even been done, then they go to the other areas, and probably the swing vote areas, and try to push up their numbers. So it is a game of psychology. And I'm thinking on this thing of the landmines that may come up at this period. My thinking is that, you know, with our Kenyan style of politics, if even if a scandal arises right now, it will not scandalize you. You'll become a villain, but you'll become a martyr to your people. People love such things, so that if it comes, then it's going to be it's going to be risky also, because they'll see, this one is targeting our man, so we have to rally behind him. Which is why you are seeing even President Uhuru Kenyatta never showed up for the debate. But right now, his core support base has rallied behind him, and they feel that he was unfairly treated. Therefore, we have to go and stand behind him and just support him, because now there was a sense of injustice. So if there is anyone who has any scandal and they are trying to drop it at the moment, well, it may only have a marginal effect at the swing vote areas, but the reverse effect will be to consolidate and solidify the stronghold and make them come out because of alarm and stand with their man to the last person.
Okay.
And if I could slightly
Right.
interject to something he has said,
Right.
I think part of what you will see, that campaign
That's what
schedule is
happens
also
in
not
the
fixed. There will be instances where you see a campaign changing tack. For example, if NASA goes to Meru and Tharaka-Nithi, which is a perceived Jubilee stronghold, Jubilee will definitely go there the following day or the day after to try and undo what they have done. And that is where you can see some of the counties, especially the ones that are common. You have had Bomet, you have seen Tharaka-Nithi, you have seen Meru, there is Kisii, Nyamira, and Kakamega, and Bungoma. You will see that anytime your opponent visits your stronghold, the following day or 2 days after, they will go back to undo that work. And I think you are going to see a little bit of that.
Okay, yeah, that would make sense, isn't it? Let me ask you this, Mark, in terms of, you know, how the campaign teams are working. We've seen those 200 rallies now split, 400 rallies, I should say, split between the president and his deputy. And we've heard from Leto's report earlier that if you like, the split NASA campaign teams will be coming together and coalescing. Which is the way to go right now? Is it time now to show the face of the entire team to the public, or is it, you know, every man go to, you know, the areas that support you and get us votes from there? Which works better?
You know, that's a tricky question, because this country again is a very interesting country, and the question then arises in a tribally charged election. Is Wetangula valuable in Turkana? That's a question. Now, this election is turning out to be very, very strange for a number of reasons. First and foremost, let's not forget that we've seen both NASA and Jubilee gather crowds in each other's strongholds. Now, the reality of the matter, to discount that and say that they will only get 10%, 5% would be an error in judgment, because this election is 50 plus 1 vote. So if you can get that 1 vote from a perceived stronghold, then there's a difference. And I don't know whether you listened to the ladies and the gentlemen who are giving commentary before we got on air, actually. And all these people were having very intellectual discernment of the particular political process. And I have a feeling that we are going to be surprised by how many people are going to turn out in this so-called stronghold in Nyanza to vote for Jubilee. Because the truth of the matter is this: there are a lot of things that are new and peculiar about this election. And let's not forget that if you look at the Luya vote, for example, polls have said that up to 14% of them are undecided, and 14% Luya undecided. Even if we say NASA has 80%, 14% Luya undecided is 300,000 votes, and that is 299,000 above +1. So we cannot discount these places. The value of splitting the teams is debatable because, again, of the tribal nature of our politics. But the truth of the matter is you have to cover as much ground as possible. Therefore, what becomes critical is what is your messaging, and can that messaging carry across the different counties and the different places that you're stopping.
Some very interesting views. We're going to take a short break. We're back with my panel shortly as we discuss IEBC's announcement that it will not be giving periodic presidential results, only the final. Interesting. We're talking after the break. Stay with us.